Today I'm challenging myself to shoot with the cheapest camera I can find in an online camera store. If it's that cheap, is it that bad, or is it actually quite usable? Let's find out. Come along. I think we all know this overwhelming feeling of having too many choices when trying to pick a camera, and while camera brands try to make us think that we're behind when not using the newest camera models, I think that is frankly quite silly, and basically most modern cameras are perfectly fine. It will mostly come down to small differences in one's preferences. But what about pre-modern cameras, whatever that may mean? If you are a beginner in photography and you're looking to set yourself up with the starter kit, you will quickly notice that the price range in cameras is enormous. So how cheap can you actually go? Well, I do not have a definitive answer, but one way to get a little closer to an answer is to try out a very cheap camera. And so I've decided to challenge myself and shoot with the cheapest camera that I can find in an online shop and see whether that is a viable option for a beginner. So step one was to find a camera. For this, you can look wherever you like, but I went to a proper online camera shop that actually checks the camera's functionality. In my case, I went to camerastore.com. Pretty straightforward name, I know. They actually specialize in film cameras and lenses, so if you're ever looking for a film camera, I highly recommend checking them out. It's the straightforward way to get a film camera with the peace of mind knowing that it's been checked and tested. Additionally, they also have a section in their shop for digital cameras, which is where I want to go, because for this challenge, I want to test old, cheap digital tech, not film cameras. You can find film cameras for cheap, but shooting film itself is so expensive that I think it's cheaper actually to just buy a very cheap digital camera. Anyway, I really like camerastore.com and think it's a great place to go look for functional film cameras and other photography related gear such as lenses, film or film scanning tools. I actually asked them if they'd like to sponsor this video and they said yes. So I was able to get you a discount link that you can use to save some cash if you buy a camera from their shop. The link is in the description. Anyway, what I'm looking for is a camera that lets me change the lens and that can shoot RAW, because obviously the post-processing is going to be quite an important part in this challenge. So I went to the category digital cameras and then to SLR digital cameras, because the DSLRs are surely going to be older than the mirrorless cameras and hence cheaper. And then I just set the order to price low to high. Alright, the search is already over. I mean, it's not a long search. I literally just go to cameras and then sort by price low to high and just pick the lowest. So we have a Canon EOS 10D for 33 euros. And of course, just with the camera, I can't shoot. I also need a lens. So sadly, it's not a full package. I still need to buy an extra lens. And for that, I did the same. And I've found the Canon 28 to 90mm f4 to 5.6 version 2 for 37 euros. And unfortunately, this is not really a lens I would want to buy. I just think it's a bit of a weird lens, but the rules are the rules. I had to just pick the cheapest one. So that brings us, let me just open my cart, to a total of 70 euros without shipping. I don't know if I need to pay shipping now. And that is how this beauty ended up in my hands. This is the Canon EOS 10D. This camera is from 2003. Just to remind you of what that actually means, 2003 is pre-iPhone, just when the internet was taking over the world and Kodak was seeing the end of their glory days as digital cameras were slowly becoming more and more popular. As far as I've understood the history, the Canon EOS 10D was made as a bit of a budget version of Canon's flagship camera back then. It was made for the serious enthusiast who didn't want to spend on the flagship but still wanted something of high quality for a decent price. Apparently, it was also popular among professionals though, who needed a capable but affordable digital camera body. The Canon EOS 10D comes with a whopping 6.3 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor that can shoot 12-bit RAW files, which is key because it's those flexible RAW files I want to really get the best out of this old camera. So once the camera arrived, I of course wanted to try it out straight away and get some test shots. So I grabbed an SD card and opened the camera to give it some memory. But hold up, what is this? This is not an SD card slot. And it was in this moment that I realized this camera is so old. It's pre-SD cards. This camera takes CF cards, of which I had None. So I had to go to my local camera shop to buy some. But with that sorted, the camera was ready, and so I went out on a cold but sunny winter day and travelled outside of Innsbruck to the small neighbouring city of Hall in Tirol to meet my friend Fabian there and go shoot together.
He moves like a magnet, wearing holes in the carpet, counting steps to the back porch, same song.
Alright, I've made it to the location where I've also met my partner in creation today. Fabian actually spotted a nice shot right there. So let's try to get a shot of, I think that's a church or some sort of tower with the mountains in the background. I think that might be a good start. Hast du das Drehrad mal genutzt? Ich finde, das fühlt sich so gut an. Dafür, yeah. Alright, so let's turn it on. That's this here. And it's ready to go. Alright, shot number 1 is in with the 10D.
So here is shot number 1, and I think we're off to a great start. I mean, look at this photo. Could you tell that this was shot with an €80 camera setup from 2003? I couldn't. I don't think so. I'm really happy with this first one. It's a simple composition, but effective, and the subject is just quite cool. The tower with the massive rocks in the background makes for a decent first shot. I then shot a couple more photos of this view to get a few different angles, and in this moment I actually appreciated the zoom lens that, at first, I told you I was not so keen to buy. But I think it turned out to be very useful. Here are the shots.
Salgo a caminar al sol por nuestro lago
Oh, ein bisschen Street Photog.
y por donde mire te veo en todos lados.
Then, as we continued to walk, I stumbled upon a pretty scene that I thought might be worth capturing. Here are some of the shots. These are alright, but not that good. I think I wasn't able to capture the scene in a particularly interesting manner, but it still looks good. Nice lighting, and I think the camera did a good job at capturing this.
Eigentlich ist das aber auch fein. Das nehmen wir schnell mit.
En nuestro universo todo era posible.
Morgen.
Something I love about shooting here in Austria is the layers you can get in places like here, where the background is not just the sky, but also a giant rock.
Nuestra amistad nos hacía invencibles. Siento tu presencia.
Here are some photos that I shot of Fabian, which I think can give you a decent idea of the skin tones this camera can produce. Obviously, this is highly dependent on your editing style, but from my perspective, this looks pretty fine.
Mein schönes Licht haben wir erwischt.
Voll. Man sieht's da.
I love how this shot turned out. The backlight produced by the sun and the reflections of it in the wet ground looks so good on this granny and the child passing by. Also, I have to mention, I'm so impressed honestly by the flexibility of the RAW files I'm getting from this camera. While editing, I really didn't feel like these RAW files were falling apart. Even when doing some heavier editing, it didn't really feel all too different from the modern RAW files I'm used to. All the photos I'm showing you today were edited in Lightroom, where I was a bit lazy honestly, and just applied my favourite preset that I made last spring. It seems to work wonderfully with so many photos, so I've been using it a lot. If you are interested in getting the preset yourself, you can check out my Patreon, by the way. I publish a new Lightroom preset on my Patreon every month, and once you subscribe, you get instant access to all the content I've ever uploaded there, which also includes color grading tutorials for video, tutorials for photo editing, and all sorts of other stuff. There's a link in the description in case you want to check it out. So here is a photograph in which we can clearly observe the limitations of this camera. Obviously, the dynamic range back then was not on the same level as cameras nowadays, and so overexposing was a bigger problem then than it is now. While it's still not good to overexpose digital photos, I feel like my Sony a7 III, for example, allows me to correct a lot in post, whereas with the Canon 10D, you can see here on the wall that I could not fix it. You can clearly see that there are clipped parts here, despite my efforts to fix it in the editing process.
It could be sweet,
谢谢。
dare to honestly see.
Hey everyone. Ein Ventilator schaut super aus. Groß nice.
That was a fun little interaction. Unfortunately, I was too concentrated on the interaction and trying to not come off as a complete weirdo, so that the photograph sadly turned out pretty bad. Aesthetically, it actually looks great, I think, but the composition is pretty terrible.
Hat's lustig gefunden.
If we lived in the power of love, it could be sweet. If we lived in
Aber ansonsten
the
also logisch. Aber ich habe ja dieses Jahr jetzt noch nichts gemacht. Jetzt braucht man da nur irgendeine spannende Person, die da so durchfetzt mit dem Fahrrad oder so. Die Schritte zurück.
my heart, it aches. But goodness will win, valuing life equal love for all,
Was fotografierst du?
fueling your life slowly away.
Jetzt geht's.
At this point, I was struggling a bit with the camera. It was acting a little strange. Usually it was fine, but I noticed it would often not shoot. It didn't react to me pressing the shutter, and sometimes I had to press it multiple times to get it to shoot.
If we lived in the power.
It was right after this second shot that I realized what was going on.
Das gibt's doch nicht. Eieiei, es war so gut fast. Dann hat die Kamera nicht abgefeuert und jetzt sehe ich, der Akku ist schon leer.
No.
Ich glaube, der Akku ist halt uralt bei der Kälte. Der Akku ist schon aus.
Yeah, the battery died. This is something I hadn't considered, but the battery in this camera is presumably not in the best shape considering its age, and so on cold days like this, it can't perform that well. You have to know, we were experiencing a bit of a freezing week at this time in Austria, and on this day I believe we had an outside temperature of -5 degrees Celsius, which my modern cameras can handle, but honestly I can't blame an old battery from 2003 when it struggles to hold up in these somewhat extreme temperatures.
Goodbye, LA. Feel more alive the further away.
So that was a bit of a sudden ending to this shoot, but on the next day I actually went out into the town with the battery freshly charged in the hopes to get just a couple more shots.
Good morning, day 2, or second attempt I suppose. I'm afraid today is even colder than yesterday, and so I've actually put the battery in my trousers pocket to expose it to the cold air as late as possible. So let's put it into the camera and enjoy our, I don't know, let's see, 30 minutes of shooting before it dies again. Here it is. Here we go. Lovely. We are back in business. Let's get the first shot of these two. I don't know if it's worth turning off the camera all the time because the screen is off anyway. So actually, that's also quite nice shot. At 90mm. Here we go. Let's frame it between the trees.
So I was at it again with the Canon EOS 10D, this time under a bit of pressure, knowing that the battery is having a really hard time at these temperatures. I was having fun though, walking around, finding a shot here and there, nothing outstanding, but still pretty okay.
There you go.
I quite like this one, for example. I enjoy the symmetry.
It's kind of cute. Nice red colour.
Camped out on the porch, trying to work this out. Raining in my head, but my body is a drought. I'm in the hole, just waiting for my momentary stride. Then press the other way on Pharaoh's fury ride.
I like this scene here with the dog and the people at the back having a good time, and I think the camera captured it pretty well.
Alright, I think I just got some decent shots of that cute scene with the dog, but I couldn't shoot any more because the battery's out, and I think at this point it doesn't really help if I just put it in my pocket for a couple minutes and then bring it out again just for one shot. So I'm afraid that's the end already. It wasn't much of a shoot, but at least we got some shots.
So what's the conclusion here? Personally, I think this 2003 Canon DSLR that I was able to get with a lens for just €80 is quite impressive. I knew what I signed up for when I decided to do this challenge. I was expecting to find a decent camera, but once I realized just how old this camera is and that it doesn't even take SD cards, I was getting a little worried that I might have overestimated the capabilities of the cheapest DSLR I could find on Camera Store. But luckily, the camera then really showed off what it can do when used in good lighting. I do not expect this camera to be good at low light, but when you understand the camera's limitations and just work with what the camera is good at, you can get some wonderful shots with this, and I'm really happy with some of the photos I was able to get. So would I recommend getting this camera? Definitely. Maybe not if you are planning to shoot regularly on very cold winter days, or maybe you can somehow get your hands on a newer battery that can take it. But if you plan on shooting in the summer, for example, or you just live in a generally warmer place than Austria, I think this is a fantastic cheap option for a beginner to get started and shoot with a serious camera, but for so much less cost than modern cameras. And I hope that in this video I could demonstrate that, and if you're a beginner wondering whether you can get away with something really cheap like this, I could maybe encourage you to consider this. Anyway, that is all for today. I hope you had some fun coming along. Before saying goodbye, I would like to say a massive thank you to the lovely people supporting me in my work on Patreon. Thank you so much to each one of you. As mentioned earlier, if you're interested in Lightroom presets, tutorials and stuff like that, you can check out my page via the link in the description. Also, I have a print job, by the way, in case that is of interest to you, also in the description. With that said, I hope to see you again soon. Until then, goodbye.